Well, first of all, up there we formed as a complete new all-Australian squadron, and we got an Australian squadron leader, and he took over from the English chap that was running it originally. So we more or less formed up there to come down to be in the Defence of London area at Hornchurch, which is just outside of London. And we were mostly at the satellite ground, which was down at Southend, which is a little bit further out from Hornchurch. And we ran sweeps. Of course, Hornchurch was a wing on its own, so it had 3 squadrons there, so we used to do wing sweeps over France and try and get the Germans to come up. And we were doing a bit of what we call boat convoys up the channel, because the Germans just try and sneak over and prang them were coming up, so we'd do cover for them up the channel at times. And also that south coast was always a favourite spot for the hit-run fighter boys from the other side to come in, so we often did a lot of sort of patrols up from between Deal and Dover, and we had some pretty big stoushes out of that. Another chap and I were doing one of the last runs of the day. It was about 4 o'clock, I'd say, a bit early, between Deal and Dover, and the cloud ceiling was only 1,000 feet. And all of a sudden the controller said, bandits at 1,000 feet between Deal and Dover. We thought, well, this looks good, so we beetled off down towards Dover from Deal, and on the way down there I said to my leader, I said, look down below, Alec, we're at 1,000 feet, mind you. And they were right on the deck coming in, a whole pile of Focke-Wulf 109s, one FW-109s and Focke-Wulf 190s. And they were doing, it ended up was a big raid on Canterbury. So there were about 50 of them, there's only 2 of us. We just dived in to split them all up. And I lined up in the Junkers 88 light bomber, and I'm blasting away, and I could see black smoke coming out. And then I looked behind, and there's 2 blokes right up my backside. So I did a steep climb up into the clouds and lost them. I don't know why they didn't hit me. They must have been really cockeyed, because I could see the tracers going past. Well, nobody saw him go in. Everybody saw him, pouring black smoke heading across the channel, but because they didn't follow them. So all I got was a damaged Junkers 88 out of it, and that was the first squadron hit. So I was quite pleased being only a sergeant at the time. But it was a pity you couldn't claim it, but they couldn't follow him out, unfortunately. But we had a few little stoushes like that. Often they'd try and sneak up and have a go at the boats, and by the time you turn around, they'd see that you're going to chase, and they'd clear off back to France. So you'd get one of them, you'd have to leave one plane with the boats, and the other bloke would chase them back to halfway across the channel, and then you'd have to leave them and come back. But they're the sort of little things to do, little ones. And then we'd have sort of 2 or 3 or 4 of us would go off and do hit-run raids on the tuck across the channel right on the water, and build up, go across St. Amir Aerodrome, try and catch the boys asleep and shoot them up when they were coming in or something, or beat up any of the trains or stuff that were lying around. But the basic thing was doing sweeps and trying to con the Air Force to come up and have a big stoush. But I think about that time, the early part of 453, they must have sending quite a few of their operators into Russia. So often they wouldn't come up, you'd be going over there, and a whole wing of, 3 or 4 or 6 squadrons sometimes, and nothing had happened, which was a bit boring at times. But so then they'd say, well, if they won't come up, we'll escort some bombers over. So then we'd take some Bostons over, about half a dozen of those, and to prang some of the villages or the shipping yards or something, and try and con them into coming up that way. And then unfortunately, on another trip over there, I had problems with my petrol, and I had a forced landing and ended up breaking my leg and ended up in hospital. So I came off the squadron there for then, and then I was off flying for nearly a year, and then I did ferry flying before I get back up into ops. And Then I 4-5 flew the way up in the Orkneys, up at the top end of Scotland. And after just coming out of hospital, I didn't feel like going up into that freezing country, so I was posted to 80 Squadron, which was an RAF Spitfire squadron. We did a couple of swoops with them, and then they transferred us planes into Tempests. And 80 Squadron was going to use the Tempest to chase the jets, the German jets, because it was the fastest plane at the time, and do a bit of the hit-run raids. But D-Day was coming up reasonably close to that, and they wanted volunteers to switch over to Typhoons. So I switched over and went into Hawker Typhoons to get into D-Day, and stayed with them through till the end of the war, rather till the end of when they had the Battle of the Bulge there, towards the end of the war, and I had a forced landing in the front line, and they grabbed me, and I was a POW for the end of the 5 months. Our job mainly was to be coast liaison with the Army, and we'd, at some stages there, we just sort of had a patrol line, and we'd just stooge up and down, and then if they got into trouble, they'd say, look, reference so-and-so on the map, there's a half a dozen tanks in there, we'd like you to knock them out. And if we couldn't see them, they might be hidden in the trees or camouflage. They said, oh, righto, we'll put some red smoke or something, so they'd plonk a red shell over, give us an idea where they were, and we'd just go in and wipe them out. But outside of that, we used to chase trains, anything that moved. That the job was the Typhoons was to, any convoys of trucks or trains, any trains. So we just about wiped out all the trains, just about in southern Germany. There wasn't any moving at all. Well, what would have happened was when they'd hear you, they'd naturally speed up to try and get away from you, and then you'd hit them with a ripple of. So we had 8 rockets, but very rarely we let them off at 8. We'd let them with 2 at a time, and they going so fast they just take off the tracks, and you'd find them out in paddocks, hundreds of yards away from the railway lines. You think, how the hell did they get out? I saw them out there and said, how the hell did they get out? And then start to think back, oh yes, well we hit those when they're doing about 60, 70 mile an hour, and they just took off, and their momentum in them out in the paddocks a few hundred yards away. God, they definitely get out there.